And we're live. Hey there, and welcome back to my live stream. I'm Father Roderick, and in case you're watching this for the first time, I do this every week. It's an open chat. Sometimes we have a topic, and other weeks like today, it's just a chat, and people that hop by can ask me anything, and we'll just talk about whatever is on your mind or what's on my mind. It is Ash Wednesday, the day that I'm streaming this. Now, you may actually watch this later. So for Catholics, that's the beginning of Lent, which means for 40 days, we're going to prepare for the celebration of Easter. And it's a time traditionally with three characteristics, or three main characteristics, which is fasting. So Catholics fast, so you eat less, or like, for instance, on a day like today, it's a day where you don't eat meat and you eat less than you would normally eat. So for dinner, I have my homemade onion soup, which I made from leftover onions a couple of days ago. It's been in the fridge, and it's actually quite tasty, maybe too tasty for Ash Wednesday. And the second element of Lent is always prayer. So we're invited to spend some more time with God. And then the third element is almsgiving. It's basically caring for other people. It's not necessarily just giving money to the poor. You can help people in your vicinity in many different ways. So you basically can be as creative as possible. So that's in the gist. That's a gist of Lent that starts today on Ash Wednesday, as you all probably are familiar with. And then it's approximately 40 days. It's not exactly 40 days until Easter. There's not an exact calculation. Some people say, well, you don't count the Sundays. But then others say, well, actually you do count Sundays. It varies. But that's not the point. It's kind of the idea is 40 days because Jesus went to the desert for 40 days. And the number 40 in the Bible kind of represents like an entire life, and hence the 40 years in the desert with Moses, etc. So the number 40 is kind of representative of your of a lifetime, you could say. I want to say hi to some people in the chat. We've got Frankie, and Margot is there. Stefan is there. Nate Dogs 212 is there too. Binary Rainbow. That's a great screen name. Margot is there. And Mike is also there. Hi, Mike Kuipers. Good to see you again. Stefan wants to know, what is my favorite anime? And his favorite anime is Neon Genesis Evangelion. I have to say that is one of my favorite animes as well. Because it's so dense. It's an older anime, but there are lots and lots of interesting symbolic moments in there, and it's very apocalyptic. So it's a story that you can keep exploring. It's not just a linear story, and once you've seen it, you're done with it. In fact, I've been doing a ton of videos on it, and I hope to do some more in the future. However, like anime series that tug on my heartstrings, I would say definitely Freerun, which is now on Netflix, which is very cool. It means that a lot more people are going to be able to get to know that wonderful story. And there's so much to love in that series. And one of my favorite aspects of that anime is the music. So I've been looking for, like, you just go to Freerun soundtrack on Apple Music or Spotify or whatever service you use, and it is absolutely stunning music. I've had it on repeat for weeks now, and it's funny now that I rewatched the series on Netflix. Like, the music is in the background, but it's not as dominant as you would think, but it's a soundtrack that works so well just by itself. It doesn't need the anime to be amazing. And, this is one of these rare composers where I would hope that they get hired by, I don't know, Lucasfilm or to do big budget movies. I don't know, Harry Potter or Star Trek or Star Wars, who knows. So that is, and then of course I'm always on the lookout for other anime series as well. I have to say that I'm enjoying Takamoto Days. So this story about this former assassin who is now running basically a grocery store with his family, and he's kind of overweight, and everybody thinks that he's lost it, but in fact he's still extremely sharp, and so the crime syndicate that he used to work for is after him, and so every episode is him with a couple of friends trying to thwart the bad guys, and it's just a lot of fun. It's nothing pretentious. There's not much depth to it, but I enjoy it every week. Cruel and Angel's Thesis, the opening music, yeah, it's okay. I wonder if I ever did a translation of that. It's just, the most of the time the opening music for anime series is very different from the soundtrack, and it's more like Japanese pop music. But I kind of like it. It gives it a kind of Japanese modern edge. Freerun also has like an opening song that is so different from the overall vibe of the series. It's a bit jarring almost, but it's a fun melody, but it's like nothing like the soundtrack. So I hope everyone is doing well, despite the situation in the world, which is kind of really disquieting. But I hope you can all stay, how do you say that? Take good care of yourself. Take good care of your mental health. Take good care of your spiritual life, because we need that right now. I know that I've been kind of watching the news in moderation. I don't want to completely close myself off from what's going on in the world. Far from that, because I think we live in very dangerous times where we need to be vigilant and alert. But at the same time, I also give myself plenty of time to just read books, listen to some music, do my own positive things, and not get gobbled up by all the despair that you see everywhere. Hey, Thomas. Yeah, those bookshelves, I installed them on purpose to be a bit more believable as a booktuber. I'm still in the same coat room. So this used to be the room with the purple light in the background. But I had these bookshelves. These are just simple billies from IKEA. I had them upstairs in the guest room. But I rarely ever have guests. And that used to be my previous office. And I was like, why do I keep them there? So about a week ago, I almost broke my back bringing these down the stairs, reassembling them, and then I put some books in there. I had to really search for books to put in there because I don't have many physical books anymore. I used to have plenty, but then I kept moving from rectory to rectory, and so I got rid of most of my books. And I read almost everything as audiobooks right now, and the occasional ebooks. So I don't have any recent physical books. I've got a few like secondhand ones that I pick up for free at the local grocery store. But yeah, it's I hope that in the future I might pick up some more like nice series with nice book covers, just to bring it a little bit up to date. But since this is all a bit blurry in the background, it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to feel like you're in my reading room, and I wanted to have something that immediately, since I'm mostly building my BookTube channel right now, I wanted that to feel immediately like, oh yeah, I'm watching a BookTube video. I do, however, also film outside. So yesterday I filmed 2 book reviews out because the weather is beautiful and I live very close to the woods. And that's also because if you're just watching me talking in front of a couple of bookshelves, that's what every booktuber does. And personally, I always like watching people that while they're walking outside. It kind of gives a bit more variety. It's much harder to film, obviously, because you have to focus on what you're saying and also watch where you walk. You have dogs, you've got people that interrupt you. So it's a bit of a pain to record it outside, but I hope that it will give the necessary variety to my channel. So I just recorded a review of Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, which I read 2 weeks ago, but I hadn't found the time yet to record my my impressions of it. But I'm currently editing another one, and that's my review of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which is a very recent book by Victoria Schwab. And I've got a lot of books by Victoria Schwab on my to-read list, but this is the first one I've ever read. And I have to say, I was very impressed. I think it's a great story, lots of amazing themes, and it was compelling. I was just surprised how a simple premise. So the idea of the book is there's this girl lives in 18th, like beginning of the 18th century in France, and she is supposed to get married to a guy that she dislikes, and so she's completely desperate. She has no say in it, obviously, in those days, and so she prays, but she does it at a time where it's really dangerous to pray. It's like when it's dark, and she's been warned not to do that. And so someone answers, and it's a guy named Luke, and when he appears, he looks exactly like this man that has been in her dreams for years. And so he asks her what's going on, and then she explains the situation, and she says, I want to be free. I don't want to get forced to marry anyone. I want to be free of any relationship. And then Lucas, you know what? I can actually help you. I happen to have a bit of magic, so we can make that work. But obviously there's going to be a price to pay. And then you can have anything I have. And no, I don't need physical stuff. I want your soul. I want your soul. And then she's like, I'm probably talking to the devil here. Okay, well, you know what? Let's do it like this. You can have my soul if I'm done with it. If I'm done with this life. Thinking, of course, I'll live forever, he's never going to get my soul. So she actually thinks that she is outsmarting him. But of course, that's not the case, because once the deal is done, she discovers that, yes, she can live forever, but no one remembers her. So she can walk up to someone, start a conversation, but the moment she's out of sight, people reset. And so she comes back and people are like, who are you? And I'm like, what do you mean, who are you? I just spoke with you. And so that turns out to be a horrible punishment. It's almost like hell, because she is unable to leave a mark anywhere in the world. And so she still tries to, she's very angry with Luke because she feels that she's been lured into this terrible contract and now there's no way out. And it's kind of that spite that keeps her going. And so she's trying to figure out ways to change the terms of the deal. And she figures out a way to leave a mark in a certain way. And then all of a sudden, much later in life, she meets this boy who works in a bookstore, and he remembers her. And so you're like, oh, what's going on? Now I want to know what the... And so it's moments like that keep you really engaged in the story. And then I thought the ending was also very well done. Very, very well done. So anyway, actually I should have recorded this because this is much more fun than the review that I recorded yesterday, which is much more scripted, and I try to be a bit more serious, but I kind of like just talking with some fire. Anyway, let's see what else have we got. Anything with everything in moderation. I totally agree. Thomas says, audiobooks are great. I still have a ton of physical books, though. I've run out of space on my bookshelves. Well, you can always create like a little backdrop or something like that for your video calls. So I have some. So the way I set this up is, so this is just what is it? 3 bookcases, 2 regular ones, and then I've got the small one here in the center, which is placed at a 45-degree angle. So it creates a bit of a round, well, it's not really round, but it looks nicer. And then the camera is on an arm, and so is the microphone here in front of me. And those are suspended above my a small desk, which is really small. It's, what is it? I think 1.20 meters in length, and then it's 50 centimeters. So that's not much. But I have the monitor standing in the windowsill, so that doesn't take up space. I've got this big widescreen monitor, and then it's surrounded by 2 Elgato LED lights with a bit of a diffuser in front of it. So that makes sure that I can record and I can stream at any time of the day. So right now outside it's dark, but less than an hour ago, the sun was still shining, and so I had plenty of light here in the room. And then today I installed a sound system because this is such a tiny room. I just didn't have room for decent speakers, and the audio coming from the Mac is really bad, and so is the audio coming from the LG monitor. And so I found, or actually I knew that I had some Logitech speakers for a gaming system that I have upstairs, but I never game with the speakers because I'm always in a chat. So I have the headphones on. So I brought that down the stairs, and now the only risky thing is here, there is so much equipment now on one power outlet, and it's on a group that has a lot of stuff here in my house. So sometimes it just disconnects, or how do you say that? I get a power loss. So I need what I need to do is to get a mechanic, or what is it, an electrician in here, and I need proper electricity because there's only one power outlet, and it's next to the door, and it was actually meant for the vacuum cleaner. And I remember that we were discussing where to put, when I was renovating the house, where to put the power outlets. I was like, oh, I don't need anything here. This is a coat room, I'm never gonna need any electricity in here. And I was like, dude, this is the most important room of my house. The thing is, of course, an electrician, he will have to drill in the wall, and it's gonna mess up the entire room. And then obviously I don't have the skill to repaint the walls. That's another reason that I have the bookshelves. They're covering the damaged wall, because there used to be a coat hanger here, like a big one. And I thought that the wallpaper was behind it, but it wasn't. Turns out the guys who did renovation just wallpapered all up to the board of the wooden plank that was part of the coat hanger, and then they continued above it. So once I removed the coat hanger, there's just this awful gap, and again, I don't see myself doing that. I'm I'm not clumsy, but it's just I don't have the focus to do that. Anyway, Delicious in Dungeon, Pika, I have actually watched the entire series, and it was wonderful. I love it very, very much. Still have to do some videos about it. By the way, for those of you that are watching this on one of the 3 YouTube channels on which I'm streaming this, know that there are in a total of, well, let's say there are 3 main YouTube channels that I use. You've got Father Roderick, which is the biggest one. And then I have Father Roderick - Books, which is where I do all my book reviews and my writing reports, etc. And then I have Father Roderick -anime, and that's where I post my anime videos. And that channel, actually, I don't put much up on there, but there is quite a bit of interest. A lot of people are watching my videos there. So it's just that right now I'm kind of focused on getting the books channel monetized. But that's because that's a one-time thing, you know. Like my main channel has been monetized for years. And for the book channel, what I need is like 4,000 hours. But whew, I only started on January the 1st, so I still need to create quite a bit of content that people will want to watch. But it's going really well. I think I've connected with lots of really fun people. And then remember 2 weeks ago I did a live stream here on my favorite books? What I did was I took that video, I took the live stream video, and then I cut out the part which was my book recommendations, and then I added the covers of the books in the video. So I kind of made a very simple edit of it and put that back online, and that went viral. More than 6,500 people have watched that stream. It's insane. So that's actually really helpful because that was like a 45-minute talk and people are watching it all the way through. So that's really going to help me in getting the numbers up for this channel. So once I've got the book channel monetized, then I'll move to the anime channel and I'm going to do the same things, the same process. It'll probably take a month or two and then I'll hopefully be able to get that monetized. And then I've got one other channel which is dedicated to Lego. I haven't posted anything on there for years, well, at least for 1 year. But it's actually getting a lot of views because I have some like evergreen educational videos on there. Like today, I posted a link to a Lego explainer about Lent and Ash Wednesday. Explained with Lego. It's like a very simple, funny video, and people still watch that every year. I think I made that 10 years ago, but it's been a really great investment of my time. So seeing how well those videos do, actually, I would love to, at one point, get back to creating more of those Lego videos because I think they've been really helpful for educators and in parishes. And I still get a lot of reactions on them. Let's see, who else have we got? We've got McGree51, working right now, but looking forward to watching the replay later. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're watching. Dark asks, when did you become obsessed with books? The moment I knew how to read. So, by the way, for those of you who are joining me right now, this is my Ash Wednesday. It's onion soup. Homemade onion soup. So I was a library child. That was my happy place. I lived in I think I explained this 2 weeks ago in the live stream, but I grew up in a family with 2 other kids and with lots of noise. These were cheap houses. And my dad used to play the bagpipes and he had an organ upstairs and my brother used to play piano all day long. And so there was always noise in the house. And what I didn't know at the time was that I had ADHD. And so I get very quickly overwhelmed and stressed out by too much, going on. And so I would always go to the library and I felt so safe there. And it was always very quiet. It was at the time that you could only whisper in the library and they had carpet. So it was like this really cozy place, and it was built in the 70s, so everything was kind of with wood, and it's not like modern libraries where it's all very cold, and no, this was like such an awesome place. And I just would read and read and read and read every single moment. I would stay there until they would really close the doors and they would kick me out. So that's where my obsession with books come from. And then for years, I have not read a single book. And I blame secondary school for that. So once I entered high school, in the Netherlands, we learn a lot of languages. And for every language, you have to read a specific number of books from literature. and you are forced to read like real literature, not fun books, no, books that are important. And so I took all the languages that we could get. So obviously Dutch, which had the largest list, and then English, French, German. That was it. Yeah, well, Latin and Greek didn't have a reading list. And so, but I especially German, oh my goodness, we had to read all these depressing, like post-World War II books. And really, really disliked German post-World War literature. It was so depressing. And there was always this coercion. You had to read these books, and I didn't enjoy them. And so that kind of destroyed my love for books. Because we had to read so many of them, but we could never choose something that was fun. I remember that at one point I asked the English teacher if I could read The Lord of the Rings. And he was like, I'm not sure if that's literature. Ah! And then after secondary school, I entered seminary, which was not seminary as you see in many countries, where you're kind of like in a almost like a monastery setting, and everything, all the courses are given inside the seminary. No, I was just basically a university student, so I was studying philosophy for 4 years, and later 5 years of theology, and I lived with other students, other seminarians. So we had the spiritual life in-house, but then we would still study at the university. For a master's in philosophy and later on a master's in theology, we also had to read a lot, but it was all textbooks. But again, lots of lists, and there was just so much to read. There was no time to read for fun. And so that prolonged period in my life, I just barely read anything for fun. And then I became a priest. And then once I was a priest, I felt like I don't have time to read. Read is a luxury. Reading, that's what you do when you're retired. You know, I need to be useful. I need to pray. I need to go and administer sacraments. I never took time for myself. Even like I was very active on social media. It wasn't called social media at the time, but my hobby was to write a Star Wars blog about the prequels. So I'd spend a lot of time on that. But of course, that too, in a certain way, for me was a way was outreach. You know, it wasn't fully a hobby. It was also work. And then later on, of course, that kind of turned into my work. It's like that's what I do right now. It's 100% media work. So when was my love rekindled? That was actually when the Harry Potter books came out. At the time I was studying in Rome, and I think several of the books had already been written, but I thought those were children's books. And then I saw the first Harry Potter movie, and I just fell in love with that world. And I was like, oh, I need to read these books, which was what I did. And I was so happy. I was like, this is what I did as a kid. This was my happy place. Why did I give up on books? And so that's when kind of like it was almost like a conversion. And so after I read the Harry Potter books, I went back to Tolkien. I reread the Lord of the Rings. I read a few other books, but then things started really accelerate during COVID. When the pandemic was there, of course, I had much more time because everybody was at home. I was at home. And so, and that's when I discovered the Goodreads reading challenge. And I had never heard of Goodreads. And so I remember that I logged every book that I had. I put it in Goodreads. And that's when I realized I've only read maybe 10% or less of the books that are in my bookcases. Why? Because all those books, I bought them not because I like to read them. They were study books, they were textbooks, they were, And so that was also why it was so easy to get rid of them. Like, I'm never going to read these books anymore. So I might as well just switch completely to ebooks, which is what I did. And then I think about 3 or 4 years ago, I started to enlist for the Goodreads Reading Challenge, because that kind of worked for me. It's like, I need to challenge myself. I need to have a goal. And it's like running a marathon. The moment I decided I want to run a marathon, or my first decision was not I want to run a marathon, but it was I want to run a half marathon. But I knew that goal setting was, for me, worked as a really good incentive. So I figured I might as well do that for books as well. So I think my first challenge was 50 books, I think. Or maybe I didn't even set a challenge. Maybe I just tried to read as much as I could. And then the next year, I think at one point, it became serious when I said, I want to read 50 books. And I started to figure out how to make that happen, because that basically means I have to read a book every week. And so I started to be very deliberate in planning my reading times. And I would mostly read in the afternoon after work. I hadn't discovered audiobooks yet. That came the next year, because the next year I was like, okay, 50, did it. Now I want to read 100 books. That means 2 books a week. And so, but at that time I discovered audiobooks. And we have Audible over here, but we also have a European audiobook service, which is called Storytel. And it was very affordable. I think it was less than $10 a month. And you can basically read all you want. And they have a huge catalog. So the cool thing about audiobooks is it tells you how many hours it takes to read it. So that for me was a way in which I could plan it. I knew that if I went out for a run for an hour a day, I would basically be able to read a certain percentage of a book. So I was able to predict how many books I would read in 1 week, which is what actually brought me to 100 books that year. And then last year, was it last year? I think it was last year, or maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago. I decided, you know what? 150 books. Yeah, let's do 150 books. That's 3 books a week. Should be feasible. And so that proved to be really tough, especially the first year. So I remember in the last week of December, there was this frenetic race against the clock to finish reading all those books. And I had forced myself to write a review of every book that I read, to hold myself accountable, to show my followers that I was actually reading these books, but also because it helped me to retain better what I liked about it. It makes you read differently if you know that you have to write a small report about it. But I made it. I read, I think, 3 books on the last day of the year. And then, okay, I was like, I'm not going to be able to go beyond 150 books. This was so tight. So I think that was last year. I also set myself a goal of 150 books. And this time, there was no problem, because by then it was so ingrained in my system that I was just addicted to reading books. I would just sample anything, and it's all like not just fiction, every genre, literature, even like the classics, which now I enjoy because I get to choose what I read and what I don't read. So I was actually surprised to rediscover a couple of books that I probably have read when I was 16 years old, and only now I'm like, yeah, now I'm at the age where I can appreciate this. Don't force kids to read books that they don't like, please. So anyway, and this year, total disaster. I hadn't read anything in the first 6 weeks. And that was because I decided to write my own novel. And writing was I'm totally new to writing. So that took every single bit of time. But then about 2 weeks ago, I decided this is not working. I need to also feed my soul as a writer. And so that's where I made a change. I was like, okay, I'm going to slow down the pace of writing and I'm going to make more room for reading. And so now I am in a race against the clock. I'm 19 books behind. But I've been behind way worse in the past. So I will probably be able to catch up and get current in, I would say, a month. Give me a month and I'll be done with reading those 19 books plus whatever extra books I need to read. And I have to say, so I started to read the books that I mentioned earlier. And it is like, oh yeah, I miss this so much. I love reading. Even if the books are not always that good. Because so far my ratings have been pretty low. I was all around like 3 stars, 4 stars. I've only read one book that I gave 5 stars. And I don't think it was a fiction book. So anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm going to read some more books that I will also review while reading them. So I want to read The Way of Kings, which is by Brandon Sanderson. It's part of the Cosmere series, but there is a special name for the books that he's writing right now. Anyway, it's a very popular series, and I quite like Brandon Sanderson. It's not always, sometimes it's a bit slow, but all in all, it's pretty enjoyable. So I want to read that because I know that there's a lot of interest. So that's I'm reading that also from a, let's say, strategic point of view. And this is also why I read The Fourth Wing, and I'm currently reading Iron Flame. It's not because I'm not part of the target audience, but I know that a lot of people read those books. And so I know that if I read them and I comment on them, I will reach a lot of people. That's what you do when you grow your channel. And it's still kind of like fantasy for beginners, so it's not completely outside of my niche. And as always, it depends on how you read. So for me, Fourth Wing was very instructive because I was analyzing also why does this book work and what doesn't work, at least what doesn't work for me. What can I learn from this and what would I do differently? And this is a kind of for me, it's a really fruitful way to read books because it informs me and I learn to listen to myself and reflect on why something works or why it doesn't work. This is also why I want to do those video reviews, because it gives me some time to formulate what I like about the books and also what I would write. And since I'm obviously still writing the first draft, having read a couple of like very well-known books, but also I'm pretty critical of Assassin's Apprentice, for instance, I would write differently. I would definitely make different choices. And that's all gain because I don't have a writing coach. I don't have a writer's group. So I'm basically, English is not even my native language. So, of course, for conversations like this, I manage. But writing is so much harder because the bigger your vocabulary, the more eloquent you are, the better you're going to write. And of course, in Dutch, I would have probably already finished my book because I'm pretty good at Dutch because it's my native language, right? With English, it's much harder, but it's a challenge. And as I told you, challenges work for me. Sorry to go on so much about books. That was a really good question. The I can't. Pika wrote the Apothecary Diaries, I think. Yeah, I still need to check that one out. Do you love science fiction? Yes. Oh my goodness. I adore science fiction. That was actually the genre that I read most when I was in high school. And I've read all the classics, like the Jack Vance stuff. I was reading a lot. At the time, science fiction wasn't a big genre. It was very niche. So I read a lot of pulp science fiction because that was the only stuff that was available. And then, of course, later on, I discovered the newer science fiction stuff. I currently have a number of Tchaikovsky books on. That's his name, right? Andrew Tchaikovsky. Anyway, he's got a lot of interesting books there. I read a lot of Philip K. Dick, and it's because of the movies, obviously, that I discovered his stuff. But that's the kind of science fiction pulp that I really like. There's always something like so smart in the premises of his stories. The books themselves are usually very small. Sometimes they're just novellas. But an incredibly creative writer. I tried some of the newer ones. Scalzi, Old Man's War, and I did not like it. Everybody told me, you gotta read that, it's awesome, and I'm totally hooked. And I read the first book, I was like, yeah, it's a bit, I don't know, superficial. I just didn't care that much. It's also because the genre is, I think, warfare science fiction, which is just not my thing. I also try to read, oh my goodness, I have to go through my list again. The book about, this was all the rage like 2 years ago. It's a book about a sentient ship. Oh, I couldn't get through it. It was way too abstract. So I like adventures, something needs to happen. I like the kind of urban science fiction. Obviously, also a lot of the kind of young adult science fiction. I enjoy reading that because it's easier read for me as a non-native speaker. But yes, you can wake me up at any moment of the day for a good science fiction story. I think, like, I'm actually much newer to fantasy than I am to science fiction. So maybe I should also start thinking about writing some science fiction books. Because, I don't know. But fantasy feels easier to write. I don't know why. Let's see. How can I answer more of your questions? Have you checked out Daredevil Born Again? Yeah, the original series was on Netflix, right? I really enjoyed it, and pretty deep. And yes, the main character is Catholic, and you definitely see that in the way he reacts. So I'm looking forward to the new Daredevil series on Disney, right? Hopefully it's just going to be the same. I hope there's depth in there. I hope it's not just superficial action stuff. We've got Advocate Das. I don't know why I said that in German. And it's great to see you are joining us from Croatia, Broken English Book Reviews. Really appreciate it. That's what I love about these live streams. You never know who's going to show up. Schmauk the Golden, love your screen name. Are you familiar with the work of the Catholic science fiction writer Gene Wolfe? His book of the New Sun series is a masterpiece of the genre. All the best. I've never heard of the writer, but I'm going to look it up right away, see if he's available in my audiobook list. I'm currently reading this. We can see this. Yeah, there you go. Warrior Cats. I discovered that the whole audiobook series is available on Storytel, and it's exclusive to Storytel. I've been looking everywhere for the audiobooks. And it's because, completely by accident, I discovered that I struck gold with a short about warrior cats. I did just a simple video. I picked up a secondhand book. I was like, is this worth reading? And then I think it got 40,000 views. It's insane. There is a massive warrior cats community out there. And I have to say, so I'm currently listening to the first book, and I love it. It's obviously written for a younger audience, but nevertheless, it's so much fun. It's what I would write, I think. So really enjoying that. Oh yes, I was going to look for the author that you just mentioned. So it's Gene Wolfe. Gene Wolfe. Let's look at authors. No results found. Well, that's not oh, actually. There is Renee Wolfe, but that's not the same. Oh, Gene. No, yes. The Book of the New Sun, right? There you go. It's here. Awesome. In a distant future where civilization has crumbled and remnants of ancient technology linger as myth, a young man is raised within a guild dedicated to torture and execution. Fun. Trained to be devoid of compassion, one moment of mercy causes him to break a sacred rule, leading to his exile from the only home he's ever known. Carrying a legendary sword and haunted by memories of his transgression, he embarks on a perilous journey through decaying cities where reality and illusion intertwine. Along the way, he encounters formidable foes, enigmatic allies, and mysteries that challenge his understanding of himself. His fate becomes intertwined with the fate of a dying world, the promise of a renewed age, and the elusive truth of a waning sun. That sounds like my cup of tea. Oh, thank you so much for the recommendation. And then there's another book. Oh no, this is actually The Shadow of the Torturer. This is the first in probably a series. Alrighty, I should see if I can. I'm going to read the book, and maybe I'll see if I can get the author on one of my shows. Next weekend for the rest of March, the live streams will start at 2 p.m. for us before returning to 1 p.m. in April. Oh, you're switching back to daylight savings time a bit earlier. Yeah. Mauricio. Hi, Father Roderick. It's been a while since I've been able to join a live stream. Happy to join on Ash Wednesday. Welcome. Bagpipes plus piano would overwhelm most people. You bet. Frank Miller's Daredevil run as well as the Born Again storyline. Awesome. Yeah, forced reading is awful. Oh, you're diving into the Cosmere with Mistborn. Binary Rainbow. I let me know what you think. I posted a review of the first Mistborn book. I'm going to do some more reviews. Unfortunately, I've forgotten a lot of the books. It's all a blur because, if you read 150 books a year, not everything sticks. But I know that I remember that I really enjoyed the first book and part of the second book. And then the third book got really slow and a bit too slow for my taste. But at the end, it all comes together. But it's a bit uneven. And that's kind of an issue that I've had quite often with Brandon Sanderson. Sometimes his books just tend to sag in the middle. And then everything comes together, but too quickly, too much at the same time at the end. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm glad I'm not the only one who was turned off reading by compulsory reading. I think that's just one of the broken aspects of our educational system. And that's why it's one of the reasons that I want to write my own book. I want to write a book that people love to read, that is fun to read, and I don't know, has some depth. And so I'm going to read it as if I'm reading it for myself, for my younger self. I remember as a kid, I wanted to become a children's book writer. I still think that I would be a good children's book writer. I don't know. It's just I've read so much at that young age that I think I can pretty well relate to kind of that level of what kind of stories you like as kids. But nevertheless, I think a good story can appeal to anyone, any age. Let's see. Energy just talked about me to friends, and now YouTube shows you this live. It is your destiny. No, seriously, welcome. By the way, if you're watching this and you like this stream, you can help me by, first of all, make sure that you're subscribed to my books channel, but also to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to help me, my entire channel, if I post new videos, if you leave a comment, even if it's just a few words, that is so incredibly helpful for getting the videos to a broader audience. So thank you. I don't want to bag for it, but that's just one of the ways in which you can help creators is just by leaving a comment. Writer critique and accountability groups have been a game changer for Thomas. Yeah, I still don't have enough time to actually join an accountability group. I'm good friends with a number of fantasy writers here in the Netherlands. And some of them are also active on social media. So I love to read their updates, especially I've interviewed all of them. If you've watched my author interviews, those are all people that I've been following for almost a year now. And I just, like, they actually convinced me that I had to write my own fantasy novel. And I feel really connected to them. It's a great community. I love these people. And they have a live stream concurrent to mine, which is super frustrating because I want to watch their live stream and maybe vice versa, but we can't because we're both on the same time on Wednesday. So maybe I'll need to change this live stream to another time because those live streams are so motivating. And anyway, I'm not yet at the point where writing is one of the many things I'm doing, and so I kind of. And I have my ups and downs because of my ADHD. So right now I'm actually a bit in a slump. Is that how you say it? So I've not been writing for 2 weeks because my brain just needed to rest. I couldn't continue at the pace I was going. But I'm gradually getting back there, and the story is coming back in my dreams, so it's not gone. But I feel like if you're in an accountability group, that could actually cause me to feel too much pressure. So I'm not sure if that would work, but I'm looking forward to the editing phase where I can, get this out to my beta readers, and I can work with an editor to improve it. I'm looking forward to it because that's probably when I will learn the most about the craft. And I'm looking forward to writing my 5th book because I know that by the time I'm writing my 5th book, I will actually be a writer. I will know how to write. So I don't know how many years that's going to take, but I'm in love with writing. It's definitely one of the most fun hobbies that I picked up in a long, long time. So anyway. Advocate has a recommendation. Feel free to post it. I'm always open for it. Apothecary. Yeah, it's just one of those words. I've only seen it. I've never tried to pronounce it. Apothecary. Apothecary. Okay. Apothecary. Apothecary? Okay, I'll study this and improve. Did I read books of indie writers? Yes. A lot of the Dutch writers are indie writers, in the sense that they are all that's not true. That's not true. They're not self-published. There is a small fantasy publishing house, but it's so small that I think on an international scale, you would say, yes, these are indie writers. So this publishing house is basically two strands, you could say. One, they invest in the books that they believe in, but they have also an option where you bring money and then they will publish your book. So you bring in a couple of thousand. They will actually give you all the accompaniment and the editing, and so that's actually really great value. And then they will print it. Obviously, their costs are much higher than the money people bring in, but that's a way for a lot of indie writers to get their books published in paper form, and then they get invited to go to fantasy fairs, etc. And I am really tempted to do that with the Dutch version of my books. A book. Let's be modest. In my mind, I've already written 10 books, but yeah. But I would love to have like a local publisher, because I have so started to appreciate the small scale context that you have on fairs like that. And I've always been someone who thinks huge, like I need to have 10,000 sales and I need to game the system, figure out how to become a bestseller on KDP. But just more and more I'm thinking, you know what I actually enjoy, what nourishes me the most are these one-on-one contacts with readers. Or writers for that matter. So why don't I pursue that as well? You can always ask any weird question. Let's see. Is there a way, Marco wants to know, that my fiancé and I marry in the church before RCIA? That's something you would have to ask your local pastor, because the situation is different we don't have RCIA here in the Netherlands. We have marriage preparation, but there's no compulsory RCIA. So your mileage may vary depending on where you live. But I would just start a conversation with your local pastor and see what is possible. There are no global rules for that sort of stuff. Okay, so I would like to recommend web novels, light novels, and the first one, The Lord of the Mysteries. The second is Shadow Slave. Both are fantasy, both are highly regarded. And they both are available on a site called Web Novel, and the first 50 chapters are free for every novel they publish. Oh, that's cool. Actually, I found some of those websites, yes, where you can just read self-published books for free. But thanks. I will definitely copy this comment and take a look, because those are probably not published with an ISBN number, so it's very unlikely that they're on Storytel. Madison wants to know what I think of The Chosen. Well, you know what? I have never watched it. It is one of my Lenten goals to go watch those episodes. But I just never got around to watching it. I don't know why. Everybody tells me it's amazing. I don't know. It's probably because I've got so many other stories that I enjoy and I just have very limited time. But I will check it out. Apothecary. It's the word of the week. Apothecary. No, apothecary. Apothecary. Mr. Mystery says, I'm currently writing my first novel. It's about an elven chef looking for the descendants. Oh, chief. No, chef. Like a kitchen chef. That'd be interesting. Looking for the descendants, how a chef he met 900 years in the past to taste his favorite dish one last time. Oh, that's funny. That sounds a bit like, something along the lines of Delicious in Dungeon. That's an amazing concept. I would love to read that book. An elven chef. That's awesome. What is the Dutch path for adults to enter the church? That depends on the parish. It's very kind of there's no cookie cutter thing. So in some parishes, the pastor will accompany you personally. In other parishes, they will have the Alpha course. Some others will have a more specific baptismal course. It's all over the place. I also know priests who just will give the catechism or like go read a book and then come back and I'll baptize you. There is like from I would say church law. The threshold is very low. You should not impose too much on people. I mean, obviously, formation is important, but at the same time, you don't need to burden people. A lot of the followers of Jesus couldn't even read, right? So it was good enough for them. But Yeah, I'm learning. Yes, apothecary. Apothecary. What time is it? It's 8 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for me to wrap things up. But thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I was on the verge of kind of canceling the live stream because I just couldn't figure out what to talk about. And then I was like, oh well, you know what? Let's just do another Ask Me Anything. And that kind of works thanks to you. So thank you so much for your questions and for engaging in the conversation. We've got one final. Two more questions. Are there any fantasy novels about the Catholic Church or related to it? I'm sure there are, but I don't know. Some people say Catholics believe in fantasy anyway because they read the Bible. Ha ha ha. But well, the book that I'm currently writing is about two novices in a monastery in the early Middle Ages in Ireland. So it's very church heavy, but it's also, there's a lot of magic in there and dragons and stuff. So, but yeah, I think there probably are. It's going to be tricky to find books that are actually knowledgeable about the church, because oftentimes there will be monks, there will be religion, but it's always kind of clearly written by an outsider. So I don't know. One of my favorite novels out there is called Between Two Fires by Christopher Bowman. In 14th century France during the Black Plague. Awesome. Vinland Saga. I'm a huge fan of Vinland Saga. I did a lot of TikToks on Vinland Saga. By the way, if you don't know my TikTok channel, go to tiktok.com/Father Roderick and subscribe. You'll be joining about 250,000 other people who do, which is mind-boggling. Anyway, Between Two Fires is Catholic fiction. Okay, that's good to know. Berserk, I actually read a few of the manga tomes. I haven't watched it. It's an intriguing story. It's very violent. It's very gory. And since my channels are all family friendly, it's kind of hard to discuss it. But it is an intriguing story. Definitely, I'll give you that. Just do some random rambling. Yeah, I'm very good at doing random rambling. Did I avoid your question, Frankie? I must have missed it. I did not do that on purpose. So I actually don't even see your question. Maybe it was moderated? I don't know. I'm scrolling up. Oh, you're up. That's your first question. I didn't recognize that as a question. We all know there are huge moral risks in the use of bots and AI. I'd like you to describe the slippery slope, as you must certainly see that happening around you. Okay, I see your question. Yeah, well, obviously it's a slippery slope. It's very mixed. I use AI myself for like the basic tasks, like summarize this or rewrite, like do a spell check and stuff. The generative AI has a lot of pitfalls and a lot of also moral dangers to it. But I think in the end, AI is a tool, just like anything else. You can use it for good, you can use it for evil. And it's a very powerful tool. That is what makes it so dangerous. But I think that it's an unstoppable development. So rather than trying to ban AI, we should find common rules. And I think in that respect, the international community is very important. We need to decide together how we want to use this tool, and also the people that own those tools and make money with it, they need to follow some basic rules. And then I think there's also a lot of media literacy that is necessary. More than ever before, I think we need to educate kids and adults about how to use a tool like that responsibly and ethically. But it's a huge topic. So I saw your comment. I thought it was just a comment. I didn't see that it was a question. Question of my apologies. But we can talk about that in one of the future live streams. Have you ever been to San Diego Comic-Con? No. It's on my list, but San Diego is very far away and it's very expensive, and I probably wouldn't be able to get tickets anyway. So, yeah, I hope I'll one day be invited. But yeah, there's not a chance in the world that I can go there by myself just like that. It's on the other side of the planet. How I experience AI. I have a relatively positive experience with AI. It's really helpful. I use it very much as like a tool, also a sparring partner. Obviously, like most of us, I've also seen the horrific ways in which some, evil people use AI to deceive, to undermine human, human dignity. And so, yeah. And then, of course, you've got the unethical ways in which some parties have been gathering information to feed their models, like Meta. This is one of the reasons that I actually am stepping away completely from all the Meta platforms, because we know that they have been stealing hundreds of thousands of books. They've been torrenting them and scanning them in for their AI model without paying anything, and it's been uncovered, and they don't even apologize for it. It is shocking. It's just stealing other people's creativity. I'm very disgusted by Meta, and have been for years. I just never really set the next step of actually stepping back. If you want to read my thoughts on that, I posted a podcast about it on my podcast, The Walk, where I explain why I'm stepping away from Meta, and I hope that many people will do, because that's the only way in which we can force change. It's by voting with our wallets. So, yeah, ChatGPT is very useful. I often use it also as a sparring partner. Like, give me some ideas, or like, I want to do this or that. Give me like 3 options. And then usually that triggers my creativity, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do this and that. But yeah, obviously there are people that are writing entire novels with AI, and believe me, those are probably terrible novels, because AI is not creative. It's a probability calculation. So it's always a copy or a rehashing of stuff that's already out there. And I think true creativity is something that is unique to us, to humans. Anyway, I'm going to wrap things up. Again, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was fun. If you want to join me in my Discord community for free, go to this link here. If you go to this link, you will get to a page, and that will guide you to the Discord community. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of new members in the community because I've been advertising this for a couple of weeks now. It's a safe space. We try to keep it positive and friendly and welcoming. And I'm a very strict moderator. So hope to see you there, and talk to you next week, and have a wonderful start of Lent. Take care.